Can they compete if you still trade Tyreek? This has been an ongoing issue over the last few years with Tua.
He said, I'm out.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, well, obviously, unfortunately, my happiness, we have to move on from it. And we're going to talk about some shit that's going on in the NFL. One big thing, which happened yesterday, a man named Tyreek Hill said in an interview after the game on Sunday, he said, I'm out.
I just got to do what's best for me and my family, dog. If that's here, or if that's wherever the case may be, man, I'm finna open that door for myself, dog. As I'm opening the door, like I'm out, bro.
Pretty much that's what everyone's quoting. I'm out. What is your opinion on this, Dean?
Well, they tried to clarify it. Apparently, Tyreek Hill and upper management had meetings after that comment on Sunday. They had meetings yesterday, and apparently he's not requesting for a trade outright. His comments were pretty daunting, to say the least. If you're a Dolphins fan, you're not being thrilled at the moment. I think more or less his frustrations have been, and he mentioned it. If you listen to the whole interview that he had, he mentions it not being able to have a QB1 all year, right? And this has been an ongoing issue over the last few years with Tua, with his concussion problems. He seems to be injured and then miss 4, 5, 6 weeks of the year because of those concussion problems, because he's not at a liberty to rush those back where he can be back in a week or two. He has to go on full IR, as we saw this year, because of his problems. So I think that's where a lot of the frustration is coming from on his part, because he is such a dynamic wide receiver, because he still is a top five, top 10 wide receiver in the NFL. It sucks losing. And on top of that, this is the first year in his career that he's missing the playoffs.
And he hasn't hit a
So,
thousand yards.
and he didn't hit 1,000 yards for the first time. So I think all of that frustration kind of accumulated into that interview. And it's a little rough for players when you're coming off of that game and the reporters are right in your face asking you all this shit. Maybe you make some rash comments. I don't, I think he would be okay with coming back to Miami. The only issue is the quarterback play, because you can't guarantee him that Tua is going to play a full 17 game season. And I don't think anybody can guarantee that anymore with the amount of concussions that he's had. So the Dolphins have a big decision to make this offseason. While he didn't outright, want a trade, and apparently they had those conversations like I mentioned, I don't think it would be a horrible idea if you can get a haul for him to get him elsewhere this year, especially because there are a lot of teams in the NFL who could use such a dynamic wide receiver play like him.
Yeah, the that's a like I didn't even see it like that until you just said it. Is that he has had a key? Last year he had a Tua all year for the first time, and they did very well. Tyreek Hill, I think he had like 18. He had a lot of touchdowns last year. He did very well last year, and then this year without Tua, pretty much 95% of the year, only had like I think it was 5, 6 touchdowns, 900 like 70 something yards. I don't know exactly what it is, but I see the frustration, but in that scenario, I understand. Like you have to be like professional. You can't say I'm out.
Yeah.
And I think it's
Well,
just
in that same regard, has Tyreek Hill ever been professional? Probably
no,
not.
no.
Probably not.
I feel like after he got arrested before week one, it's just
Yeah.
been
Look, it's tough because middle of the year when Tua was out, at least, right? We're not talking about end of the year. End of the year, they at least had decent quarterback play with Snoop Huntley, who actually did give him the ball, and Tyreek had some good games to end the year. It was the middle portion of the year, right, where Tua got onto the concussion, got onto IR, and his quarterback was Skylar Thompson. I mean, that's pretty rough for anybody. But at the same time, the Dolphins do have the pieces to be able to make a playoff run. Maybe not win the division, maybe not be as good as the Buffalo Bills, but they definitely have the weaponry. They definitely have the team around them to make a wild card spot right away next year. Right away. So, I mean, Tyreek has to have those conversations with himself, determine whether he wants to run it back, hope that Tua is healthy, or at least go plead with the front office to have a competent backup throughout the entire year. And then at the same time, the Dolphins front office has to have those conversations. Can they compete if you still trade Tyreek, right? Do you want to completely make Waddle your wide receiver one, who's also had a lot of injury history. It's a very tough situation, and I think the Dolphins, both parties are going to have to really think about this in the offseason.
And also doesn't help for them is that obviously Tyreek was there for 2 years, but that also means he got 2 years older. So I obviously he still has his speed and shit, but he did say he didn't want to play past a certain age. I think he's gonna abide. I honestly think he's gonna abide by that because he has said on even when he was with the Chiefs, he said it.
I understand that things change, though. I promise you, things change. Whether it's somebody offers you a stupid contract, or you go into a season where you're so close to a Super Bowl and you can't get that taste out of your mouth and you want to win it one more time. I don't doubt his intentions, at least in that regard. However, I think those conversations can be at a later time. I think they just have to determine what's best for the team and what's best for him. In my opinion, I think they should trade him.
I agree.
I think at the same time of trading him, because you will be able to get max value for him still at this point in his career. You're not going to be able to in a couple of years. At this point in his career, you're going to be able to get max value from whether that be picks, whether that be freeing up cap space, whether that be a player in return, whatever the Dolphins feel is best for them. But you also still do have to address the quarterback situation because while Tua is a good option, his health is no longer in any regard guaranteed for a full season. So I think Miami has to do a lot of soul searching on the offense in terms of that, but I think it would be in their best interest to trade him.
Real quick, I just want to. What do you think would be the best fit for him to go to?
I mean, it's tough to say because one, I haven't looked into it too deeply, being fully transparent, and there's still a lot of games going on. There's still a lot of off season left to go. We haven't even started the off season, quote unquote. Um, Definitely nobody within the division. I would say Buffalo because that would just be a slam dunk for Buffalo, but there's no shot in hell Miami would ever trade him within the division. So that's probably out. I mean, as crazy as it sounds, you can look to a team like Denver, where an up and coming young quarterback like Bo Nix has already good one wide receiver in Sutton, but Sutton's more or less that type of guy who's the go up and get it type of receiver. Tyreek Hill can just completely blow that offense open. And I think it would help for a young quarterback. The thing, if I'm a team going after Tyreek, I think you want to have a young quarterback in position.
I have a perfect fit for him. Absolutely
Let's
perfect fit.
hear it.
The Chargers.
Chargers is interesting.
New coaching. Obviously, still Ladd McConkey, who's a young wide receiver. They still have Quinn Johnson. They have a bunch of young players surrounding around that offense and have throw in a veteran Tyreek Hill with Justin Herbert's arm. I think that would be a perfect fit for him. Also, I saw on like Instagram people are saying the Ravens will never do it because they will have to give up too much, and they're not going to do that.
Who knows? Maybe you even get a Kansas City reunion.
I'll kill myself.
I mean, look, it's possible. And keep in mind, we've only talked about AFC teams here too because there probably are the best fits there. But if they want to get rid of him completely, if Miami never wants to see him again, there are definitely some good NFC teams. Like one off the top of my mind right away, Green Bay.
Oh God.
Green Bay would be perfect because Christian Watson, for anybody who doesn't know, tore his ACL. He's going to be out for the rest of the year. Not only the rest of this year, but his beginning of next year is in doubt as well. The other players on their team, sure, they have some good weapons. Like you can look at a Wicks, right? You can look at a Jalen Reed, but to add a guy like Tyreek Hill to Jordan Love's arm, that would be devastating.
Yeah, I think pretty much all these quarterbacks who have like insane arms, like the Jordan Loves, the Bo Nix, the Herberts, all those people who have like natural like strong arms, it'll be a perfect fit for him because that's what he needs. A person who will actually lead him into the end zone to score.
Yeah. And keep in mind, this is going to be a pretty heavy wide receiver offseason in terms of if you're a team that needs one. Not to mention, trade targets also like a George Pickens who just seems to be not happy at all in Pittsburgh, but we could talk about that at another time. You got some good free agents like a DeAndre Hopkins if you want to go after it, some veterans, an Amari Cooper, whoever is not franchised by the Cincinnati Bengals, whether that's Jamar Chase or T. Higgins. So you do have some good options on in the playing field. It's just a matter of where these guys want to go and which teams need them.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I want to segue a little bit.